The Roman philosopher Marcus Tullius Cicero once said, "More is lost by indecision than wrong decision." That powerful quote is the foundation of today's episode. We're going to explore the psychological cost of indecision, the enormous personal and professional power that comes from choosing a path, and practical ways to become a more decisive person. So, let's stop standing still and start moving. It's time to decide to decide. Welcome to the Due to Expire podcast. I'm grateful that you decided to listen today. I'm your host, Corey Kennard. Now, let's grow. Before we get started, I want to let you know that this episode is presented in partnership with the No Negative Energy Life brand, a life coaching resource and media edutainment outlet where we help human beings to consciously bring to the surface and ultimately eradicate the impact of negative thoughts and intentionally replace them with healthy ways of living that will increase one's ability to thrive. Check us out at nonegative.energy. That's no negative, all one phrase, .energy. Now, as we begin to go through this today, I want to start with this first subject matter: the cost of indecision. The fear of making a wrong decision is completely understandable. We fear the consequences, the failure, the judgment, but we often fail to recognize that not making a decision is in itself a decision. It's a choice with a guaranteed negative outcome: stagnation. Jim Rohn put it simply when he said this: "You cannot make progress without making decisions." Think about your personal life. That career pivot you've been considering for a year, the difficult conversation you've been avoiding, or the fitness goal you've almost started. That paralysis is creating a tax on your energy and your time, a phenomenon that research confirms. As a matter of fact, researchers in the field of psychology have identified something called decision fatigue. It's the idea that making too many choices, even minor ones, depletes our mental energy. But another costly side of this is the mental overhead or procrastinated decisions. That unfinished thought, that nagging choice that keeps running in the background of your mind like an invisible app draining your phone's battery. This cognitive load is what steals your productivity and your peace. In the business world, the cost is staggering. According to McKinsey research, inefficient decision-making costs a typical Fortune 500 company an equivalent of around $250 million in annual wages due to managers spending excessive time on poorly used decision-making processes. Whether you're a CEO or managing your own life, the principle is the same. Delaying a decision is an expensive habit. Indecision is also a breeding ground for fear. Napoleon Hill called it the seedling of fear. When you're constantly weighing options without acting, you are essentially telling yourself that you are not capable of handling the potential negative consequences. So you erode your own self-trust. But here's the game changer. We need to reframe our fear of being wrong. Instead of seeing a decision as a final verdict, see it as an experiment with a learning outcome. Theodore Roosevelt's famous quote offers a brilliant perspective on this when he said, "In any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing. And the worst thing is when you do nothing." So, the first key to unlocking the power of decision is acknowledging the high cost of doing nothing. Indecision is not safety. It is lost time, it is lost energy, and it is lost opportunity. Next is what we call the psychology of choice. Understanding why we struggle to decide can give us the power to change our habits. The field of judgment and decision making, rooted in cognitive psychology, has revealed fascinating insights into the mental processes behind our choices. One of the most foundational models is the idea of two systems of thinking, popularized by Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman. System number one is this. This is the fast, intuitive, and emotional system. It's automatic, it's effortless, and it relies on mental shortcuts. This system is great for choosing your breakfast cereal or swerving to avoid an obstacle. System number two, though, is a little different. This is the slow, deliberate, and logical system. It requires effort. It requires reason and calculation. This is what you use for complicated financial planning or choosing a career path. The challenge is that we often try to use system one for big complex decisions, or we get stuck in system two, the analysis paralysis arena, for far too long. Also included in the psychology of choice topic are our biases. Our intuition, while a great starting point, is loaded with them. For instance, we over-rely on information that is easily accessible in our memory, like a recent traumatic failure, which can make us overly risk-averse, even when the data suggests otherwise. Another common bias is loss aversion, the psychological finding that the pain of a loss is roughly twice as powerful as the pleasure of an equivalent gain. This bias often leads us to stick with the status quo, even if a change offers a substantial reward. We are hardwired to avoid losing what we have. So, how do we use this knowledge to make better choices? Well, the goal is not to eliminate system number one, but to engage a disciplined system number two when the stakes are high. One proven strategy is to clarify your personal foundation. Roy Disney said it best when he said decision-making is easy when your values are clear. When you face a tough choice, say a high-paying job in a city you hate versus a lower-paying job doing meaningful work, if your core value is impact over income, the decision clarifies instantly. Your values act as a filter, eliminating irrelevant opinions and giving your system number two a clear metric to evaluate. Another strategy is to embrace the concept of satisficing. Yes, I said that correctly. Satisficing. A term coined by Nobel laureate Herbert A. Simon. He actually smashes together the words satisfy and suffice. So instead of endlessly maximizing or trying to find the absolute perfect option, the satisficer chooses the first option that meets their criteria as good enough. This is a powerful antidote to analysis paralysis, freeing up your mental energy for the decisions that truly require a deeper dive. Remember, the psychology shows us we're prone to error and fear. But by understanding our biases and grounding our decisions in clear values, we move from being victims of our own mental shortcuts to being purposeful choosers. Then there is the liberating nature of commitment. Once the decision is made, the final and perhaps most crucial step is commitment. This is where the magic happens, where the power of decision truly transforms your life. Decision is not just about choosing A or B. It's about choosing a direction and committing to the process that follows. Tony Robbins captures this beautifully. He says, your life changes the moment you make a new, congruent, and committed decision. The commitment phase shifts your focus from the fear of the outcome to the power of your effort. This is where the distinction between making the right decision and making the decision right comes into play. Let's say you decide to launch a business. At that moment, it might be the wrong decision in a purely objective, risk-assessed sense. But by committing fully, you work tirelessly, you adapt, you learn, you pivot, and you acquire new skills. You essentially force the decision to become right through sheer will and effort. Phil McGraw summarized this mindset by saying sometimes you make the right decision, and then sometimes you make the decision right. Commitment is also what fuels personal growth. Every decision you make, whether it's good or bad, is an act of taking ownership of your life. It builds confidence, and critically, it provides you with feedback. Research indicates that the cognitive process of decision-making is an ongoing feedback loop. After a choice is made, the subsequent steps involve feedback and learning. It's the act of deciding and then observing the consequences that strengthens your future judgment. If you never decide, you'll never get any new data, and your decision-making skill remains stunted. Those who are decisive are constantly building a library of what works and what doesn't, allowing them to make faster, more informed choices down the road. Commitment also means accepting the path you've chosen, rather than perpetually looking over the fence at the path you didn't take. This protects you from the paradox of choice, where having too many options can actually make us less happy with the choice we finally do make. By declaring your decision final and dedicating your energy to its success, you will find peace and focus. Remember what Nelson Mandela advised. May your choices reflect your hopes and not your fears. A fully committed choice rooted in hope and your core values is an unstoppable force. Finally, I want to share with you practical steps to decisiveness. So how do we apply all of this? How do we stop being the person paralyzed by options and start being the person who moves forward with conviction? Here are 3 actionable steps to cultivate decisiveness. Number 1, define your good enough and set a deadline. For most decisions, you don't need 100% of the information. You need enough to be reasonably confident. Following the sufficing principle, remember that, predefine your non-negotiable criteria. Once an option meets those criteria, stop researching. Just stop. Immediately, pair this with a firm deadline. If you can't decide by 5 p.m. Tuesday, the default option or the simplest one wins. This treats decision-making as a task with a clear deliverable, not an endless mental wrestling match. Number 2, learn to isolate fear. When facing a big decision, a powerful exercise is to ask yourself this: what is the absolute worst case scenario if this decision fails? Write it down. Whatever that is, write it down. Often the reality is far less terrifying than the vague anxiety you carry. Once you've identified the worst case, ask, what would my next step be to recover? By identifying the floor and having a contingency plan, you neutralize the emotional power of the fear, making it a manageable risk. And number 3, small decisions, fast decisions. Here's what I need you to do. Start building your decisiveness muscle with low-stakes daily choices. What to wear, what to eat, what route to take. Commit to deciding these things in under 1 minute. That's right, I said it, under 1 minute. Some of you may be saying, how am I going to figure out what I'm going to wear each day under 1 minute? That's the reason for this. And that's the reason why you're in the trouble that you're in. Many of you, because you cannot make these quick decisions, and they hurt you when it comes to making bigger decisions. This practice, however painful it may be, trains your brain to move from analysis to action quickly. The more you trust yourself with the small choices, the easier it will be to pull the trigger on the big ones. Kerry Russell noted that sometimes it's the smallest decisions that can change your life forever. This is less about the immediate consequence of the small choice and more about the habit of decisiveness it builds within you. As we prepare to bring this episode to a close, it's important to realize that we are all the sum total of our choices. Tony Robbins said, your biography is not your destiny. Your decisions are. Decision-making is not a single event. It's a skill. And like any skill, it improves with practice. It improves with courage. And it improves with reflection. Don't let indecision be the narrative of your life. Don't let the fear of being wrong keep you from the opportunity of being right. And more importantly, the opportunity of learning and growing. Today, I challenge you to look at one thing you've been procrastinating on, one decision that you've been avoiding, and give it a deadline. Trust yourself to handle the outcome, whatever it may be. Remember, the true danger lies not in choosing the wrong door, but in remaining paralyzed in the hallway. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. Until next time, may your choices reflect your hopes, and may you find the power in simply taking action. I'm your host, Corey Kennard.